Dave Aronberg is a Florida state attorney here to talk about these latest developments in this case and this tragedy. Dave, the 15-year-old now charged as an adult, as we've heard, with murder, attempted murder, terrorism causing death, and gun crimes. So I want to start first with the decision to charge him as an adult and walk us through what that means.
Yeah, good evening, Marnie. It was an easy decision to charge this 15-year-old as an adult because of the severity of the crime. If you charge him as a juvenile, then there's limited time that the court system can have jurisdiction over them. That person could be set free at the age of 19 or whenever the court dictates it. And usually it's way too early. And so this is the type of thing that needs to be charged in adult court. Adult sanctions are really appropriate for someone who takes the lives of 4 people, injures 7 others, and is charged with something like terrorism, which I may add is very unusual in a case like this. I don't remember another school shooting where the individual was charged with terrorism. But in Michigan, they have a broader terrorism law than other states, and it allows this charge to be brought.
And what are the consequences with that type of charge on top of those 4 murder charges?
Well, it increases the number of years you could face in adult prison. And that's another of the benefits here to charging him as an adult, because it puts adult sanctions on the table. If he was charged as a juvenile, then he would not be eligible for adult prison, and it would be a limited time that he could even be held in juvenile detention, because at some point you're going to age out. You don't keep 30-year-olds in juvenile detention. So by adding all these charges, and there are a number of charges that could keep him in prison for the rest of his life, and that is a real possibility, even though he's 15. Now, there are some rules that the Supreme Court has implemented that require a review of the punishment. So he'd be eligible for some version of parole at some point because he was a juvenile. And as a juvenile, he is not eligible for the death penalty either. That is unconstitutional. But he could still be sentenced to life in prison for a crime like this.
Even if charged as an adult for these crimes, he would not qualify for the death penalty.
Correct.
Okay, because of his age.
Correct. The Supreme Court outlawed the death penalty for juveniles just a few years ago. It was on the table for juveniles until then, but now it is unconstitutional.
All right, let's talk about the parents, Dave. The prosecutor said not ruling out charges against both of the parents. We have learned today the dad bought a gun just a few days ago that was used in this shooting. What charges could these parents face?
Well, it depends what they knew at the time. Did they know that their child was a ticking time bomb and then make it easy for him to get access to their guns? Well, we don't know all the details yet, but you could see that in a worst case scenario, they could be charged with culpable negligence manslaughter, which is a serious felony, even possibly be part of the murder charge, but I think that's unlikely. I mean, there are some indications that he was acting out online, that he kept a journal with threats in it, but did the parents know that? And then did they make it easy for him to get access to the gun? In Michigan, there is not a requirement for firearm owners to lock their weapons, but there are some laws in place that would give them criminal liability if, for example, they made it too easy for their child to get access to the gun. And it's all very fact specific. And in Michigan, the laws aren't as strict as other states about locking up their guns. But if they knew that their son would commit the violation, or if they did something to act in furtherance of the violation, then they could be charged under the state firearm laws.
What do you make of the fact that the prosecutor was swift in bringing these charges today? She came out really fast in terms of how many charges, what the charges were, and also her rhetoric that she used in front of the cameras today, her frustration clear as she builds this case. She said there is a mountain of digital evidence. So what does that tell you about the strategy?
Well, this is what a DA sometimes does to respond to the public's mood. There is outrage in the community. How could this happen? And so she's out there saying, look, this is an isolated event, and we are going to punish the people responsible severely. And if that means the parents, then so be it. She came out with a very strong response, and I thought she did a really good job today. These parents are not doing well in the court of public opinion. First, they refused to cooperate with police. Second, they made a quick appearance at their son's arraignment via Zoom, and they looked like they were in a car and they were wearing baseball hats. So it's not exactly the best presentation you'd want to give. Plus, now people have uncovered a 2016 letter that the mother published on her blog to then President-elect Donald Trump that contains some really disturbing language in it. So they're not doing themselves any favors right now.
Finally, before I let you go, how about legal accountability for anyone else who may have known something about what was happening? We are hearing a lot of chatter, especially from people close to that school who were in the school, saying there were warning signs, there were concerns about going to school about a possible shooter. Legally speaking, could anyone else face charges or be held responsible for what they may have known?
Based on what I've seen so far, Marnie, based on the evidence that's out there, I don't think so. And that's because the evidence shows that he put out some provocative statements on YouTube and others, but it wasn't a specific threat. He didn't specifically say, I'm going to shoot up the school. Now, if someone had access to his journals where he did say something to that effect, then that would be a different matter. But according to what's out there, those journals were private, and the only thing that was public was ambiguous. People thought he was a loner. He wore all black. And a strange kid, but that's not enough to report it to people. You have no legal obligation to start saying something about someone that you distrust. So I don't see, based on the facts we know now, there will be additional charges forthcoming.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.